Hi, good evening. It's the Jon Gaunt Show, the Jon Gaunt podcast. And tonight I'm declaring it again. Britain is definitely broken. There's a massive migrant crisis. We've got the grooming gangs, which we almost had to beg to get a public inquiry for. And then we've got Afghanistan, which implicates both parties, particularly the Conservatives and Ben Wallace. What a mess. And why do us Brits always come second? Oh, let's look after everybody, the migrants, let's look after the Afghans, and all the rest of it. Brits, normal, working class Brits, you're at the bottom of the pile. You know it's true. This is the Jon Gaunt Show. Why don't you join in and give me your views? It's as simple as that. Because let me tell you what's going on. Parliament today is taking a 6-week holiday. Got to ask the question, will we miss them? But as ordinary Brits, we keep on working and we're left to deal with the mess they've created. They are, as I've said for so long, self-serving pigs with their snouts in the trough. And it's proved it. Because this country, Britain, the United Kingdom, is broken. There is a massive migrant crisis, no matter how many times they try to convince you there isn't, and the BBC back them up. There is a problem with the Muslim grooming gangs. More than a problem, it's almost an epidemic. It needs sorting, and we need the public inquiry, and we need people going to prison. And if they're foreign nationals, we need to get rid of them. There's political chaos every which way you look. And then overnight, the big story broke about the Afghans. So I want your views on that. Let me tell you, Afghans who helped us, the translators, well, they're already being sorted out, I understand. But others, yes, of course we want to help. But taking in 28,000 of them already and covering it up, that's the story. That's the story. They haven't felt they could tell you that's what they were doing. And that is what's happened. Whilst we've been looking at Dover and the small boat crisis, they've been flying them in jumbo jets. Not just Labour, it started with the Conservatives, Ben Wallace, and it's the cover-up that I'm angry about. The fact that they got a super injection. I'd like to give them a super injection, let me tell you. A super injunction, which meant not only could we not talk about what they were doing, you can't even say there's a super injunction. That is an affront to democracy, and you've got to ask why they were doing it. And this was the Tories. This is Rishi's mob, Liz Truss. And it went on from there, and Labour have been going down the same route. But we've got to say this was the Conservatives. Why did we have to take so many in? Were the Taliban really going to come knocking on the door? Of course, getting out of Afghanistan was a complete mess, and the way that Biden did it was wrong. All that military hardware that he left there. Now at least we've got a proper president. Maybe it won't be so bad. So your views on that. Let's start with a couple of people. Dark Angel says, hi, John. Hi, Dark. Thank you for joining us. Matt Coppen says, I love the channel, John. Thank you on YouTube. Why don't you repost the channel then for other people to see it? Martin on Twitter says, aren't politicians permanently on holiday? And what perfect timing. No politician available to answer some very important questions. It's funny you should say that, Martin. I'm going to talk about that when we come on to this in more detail. But yes, it's all about timing. You've got to ask, why has Starmer done it today? Last Prime Minister's questions. He never answers any questions anyway. He wanted to put the boot into the Tories. It was all about him again. Likewise, he's taken the whip away, matron, from 4 of his backbenchers. He's trying to show everyone that he's hard. Keir Starmer, oh yes, he could crush a grape, he could tear a tissue, he could rip the arm off an action man. That man is action man, you know he is. So, they've all gone on holiday. They've left us with this mess. There's an aeroplane landing at Bryce Norton. And I've got to ask you, haven't we still got the illegal migrants flooding into the UK? Have they done anything really to stop them? That stupid one in, one out deal with Macron, about as much use as a chocolate fireguard. Then my next question, why is it taking years not only to expose the Muslim grooming gangs, rape gangs, whatever you want to call them, even though there was overwhelming evidence, and why have we basically had to drag him screaming to give us that public inquiry? Who is in charge of this country? It's like almost anarchy in the UK. And then here's my next question, and you can answer these however you want. Why are Afghan or refugees being flown into places like Brize Norton and Luton under secretive schemes and a total media blackout? 20% of all army housing has been given to them. The stories coming out today where our squaddies have been moved out so Afghan families can move in. I really don't want to sound cruel, but isn't it a case of charity begins at home? Let's get your view on that. Why have they kept it so secret? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they don't trust you or I. We're the underclass. We're the people who are going to riot. And when we do, or if we did, we would be described as far right. That's their modus operandum. Not just Labour and not just the Conservatives, the whole miserable lot. The 652 self-serving pigs, they hate us. You do understand that, don't you? So now they've gone off on their holiday and they're leaving us to pick up the pieces. They've had meetings where they've been warned there could be civil unrest, that if it ever got out that they'd brought in thousands, tens of thousands of Afghanis, that we might kick off. Well, I can kind of understand why people would be angry. Couldn't you? We've got no money. Britain isn't broken. Britain is skint as well. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? You can disagree. It's whatever you want to say. So let's hear your views now, please, on that. So they're flying in the Afghan refugees. And as I say, it's not that I'm bothered about. It's the fact that they got a super injunction, the fact they kept it completely quiet, and the fact that yesterday they announced it in Parliament. And of course, Starmer did that deliberately. He's playing politics with our lives again. I've got no time for the Tories and Rishi Sunak and Ben Wallace. It's despicable what they've done. We should have been told, look, we're bringing these people in. Some of them helped us. We've had this leak. This mistake's happened. Some squaddy, some Marine has sent the whole list of every Afghani who helped us, and we believe the Taliban might have it. We're grown-ups. We could have been told that. But no. Instead, Labour got a not Labour, so easy to mix them up. The Conservatives got a super injunction to stop you knowing. Why? And they want you to stop knowing about it, but they want you to pay for it. So that comes on to my big question. Are British citizens, you and I, now second class in our own country? Who is in control? Is this the start of anarchy in the UK? I'm fed up with the whole political class. So while the politicians swan off on their 6 week summer holiday, I'm being left wondering today who's actually running this country. I've come to the conclusion, no one. Migrants are still pouring in at Dover. The grooming gangs are still being exposed. Not only that, they're still doing it. And now we find out that our government has been secretly flying in tens of thousands of Afghans under a media blackout. Well, it's not so much a media blackout. It's not like the media have agreed to this. They didn't know. That's surely an abuse of the whole idea of an injunction and a super injunction. You know the difference, don't you? An injunction means you can't talk about it. A super injunction means we're not even allowed to tell you there's an injunction. And so this also makes me wonder, what else are they keeping from us? What other things are they lying about or not telling the whole truth? And this isn't bash Labour tonight. I'm saying it's the whole political class. I think we talked about Anarchy in the UK, one of my other favourite bands, Orange Juice. Rip it up and start again. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe that will happen. Maybe Nigel Farage and Reform UK is our way out of this. I want your views. Tell me what you think. Let's get to your comments now. 5 likes. That's not very good. Come on, you got to hit that like button for me. Got no excuse tonight. We should have a big audience. The weather's perfect. I've got the back door open. I've got my steak tweet later. I'm looking forward to that. I nearly didn't do a show. I've got to be absolutely straight with you. I got so fed up about this Afghan story and the way that they were all trying to position themselves. It's just a game to these public schoolboys and schoolgirls. They are wrecking our country. And the moment we complain or we stand up against it, we're far right thugs. I've had enough of it. Have you? Fraser Ford says hello. Thank you, Fraser. Colin Banks says, not sure if you can do those things. Call them what they are. Paedophile gangs. What are you on about? Not sure if he can do those things. Who's he and what are you talking about? Paedophile gangs, they're rape gangs. They've been raping young girls. Yes, many of them underage. I don't really think that's the thing we need to have a discussion about now, is it, Colin? I laughed at the chocolate Farguard joke. Thank you very much indeed. It's good to know somebody hasn't heard it before. All right, let's move on. Who we got next? Chopper MK50. Evening, John. I learned a new word today. Dictablanda. Dictablanda? It's a regime that apparently values civil liberties, but somehow becomes more like a dictatorship as you go on. I think we're nearly there. Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, I hate Starmer's government. I hate him personally with an absolute vengeance, but I'm not alone. He's the most unpopular PM we've had. But this isn't just about Labour. Let's not make that mistake. Ben Wallace was a Conservative. He was one of the people who decided that have a super injunction. And today he said, I'll do it again because those Afghans needed to be protected. Now, interestingly, the judge, when he lifted the injunction, said, I don't think they're in so much danger now. Well, maybe they weren't before. And I think he was implying that. It was overreach by Labour. Conservatives. So let's remember, it isn't just about Labour. This is not one we can pin on him totally. We can certainly pin the small boats crisis and the fact that he said he was going to smash the gangs and he hasn't been able to smash an avocado. Yes, but I want to try and be fair. I just think it's the whole political class. I think once they get there, they become self-serving. They've got their snouts in the trough. They've got their expenses. That's why the cost of living crisis isn't affecting them. They've got everything paid for. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so they're just out of touch with us. And as it gets warmer, they even say this themselves, it'll probably kick off. And then they will accuse us of being far right monsters. Interestingly, today, they've been talking about Prevent. And they're going to expand Prevent, the people who are meant to protect us from terrorism. The ones who failed 3 times to take that monster in Southport off the streets. We don't want to expand Prevent. We need to scrap it and get a different regime, don't we? And we need to stop pussyfooting around. I put up a picture of Rudy Cabana yesterday and said, why is he still alive? Why is he still being able to say, if I get a chance, I am going to kill a prison warden. I am going to throw boiling water. Why? He should have done the Saddam shuffle. Are you with me or against me? Our politicians are just completely out of touch. And it's worrying me because apart from Farage, I don't see how anybody is going to turn this around. Fraser says, I'm glad we are the 99% together. Thank you, my friend. Who signed off the budget for this? Isn't all the budget given to the Parliament to debate? This isn't a couple of pounds, it's billions. Surely this should have been shown in the budget. Well, Pete, you make a very good point, but you see, you add to my point by taking out a super injunction. It hasn't been debated in Parliament. So it's not just they haven't told the British public, they haven't discussed it in Parliament. Most MPs didn't know this was going on. Now, I'm saying that's an abuse, that's an affront of our parliamentary democracy, and heads should roll. Now, they're now saying there's going to be another public inquiry. How many more effing inquiries do we need? We got that one. We're having an inquiry into the rapes in the northern towns. We need to get on and have action, don't we? And as I say, in terms of reforming prevent, what we need to do is scrap it and get a tougher regime. So you see, Pete, my whole point today isn't the fact that they've brought the Afghans. It's the fact they haven't told us. They haven't told Parliament. They've acted as if they're a professional footballer who's been screwing some wag and his wife's found out and he now doesn't, because he's got so much money, he doesn't want it to be in the papers. That's why they get an injunction normally. But then they get a super injunction and you're not even allowed to say ex-footballer has got an injunction. That's what your politicians have done. That's what the Tories have done. They got it out, but I probably Labour would have done the same. And what it's doing is putting the safety and the care and the comfort of the Afghans before us. And even worse, before our squaddies. Have you got a view on that? I'd love to hear it. If you enjoy the show, please press the like button. If you'd like to donate a few bob, dead simple to do. Just click the $sign on the screen on the YouTube and donate whatever you want. Or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt and donate anything from a $5 upwards. I haven't had any for a couple of days. It'd be really good if you could do it. Otherwise, I'll be selling the big issue this weekend. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I hope I'm getting you thinking, because I come at these things from a different angle. Gene Lonsdale says he's not right in the head. We just don't need the men in white coats to pick him up. Gene, who are you talking about? That could apply to most of the MPs. I hope you're not talking about me. As I say, it is not completely, it can't completely be put on Starmer this. Let's be fair. Pip Tomlinson, he's over in Barcelona. The problem is, I'm not sure I trust reform to act very differently when actually in power. As they say, power corrupts absolutely, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What was it? The final bit of that? I forgot. Listen, I've just got to open this door a minute. Come here. The dog's giving me grief. Let him just go through there. Go on. Sorry about that. That's professional, isn't it? When the daughter's dog gets in the way, I do apologise. A lot of people saying good evening. Here's one from Gregory Galvin. Evening, John. Well, evening. Now make a comment. That's on YouTube. Oh, he has made one straight under it. Although you keep saying Starmer is finished, do you truly believe he's going to go out early? Yes, I do. I think his government will collapse. Today we saw panic. He had to go at 4 of his backbenchers and he suspended the whip. He's worried because a load of them are going to go to Corbyn, the left wingers. So that's what's going to happen there. It is going to collapse. But it's going to collapse also because he's not a leader. As I keep saying, he'll never be a leader while I've got a hole in my underpants. He's not a leader. He's a middle manager at the most, right? And it's all unravelling. Look at the state of the economy. She's now going to allow people to have 7 times their income mortgages. I can remember when that happened before. It ended in disaster. This is Rachel Thieves. I don't want to go on a Starmer bash tonight, but he is. He isn't going to survive. And the Tories today, here's my other prediction. Today we saw the end of the Conservative Party. How can they come back from that? They've deceived 50-odd million Brits. They lied. They got a super injunction mainly to cover their arses for what they've done on this Afghan thing. And just like Starmer and Labour, they don't trust us. They think there's going to be riots. And she's probably why it came out today just as they went on holiday. Starmer's already been getting grief, hasn't he, from his own terrorism czar, saying, look, in Southport, you left a vacuum of information, and that basically that helped fuel the riots. I said that at the time. It's obvious. True leadership, he'd have said, listen, we know who the suspect is. We've arrested him. I can't say too much because it's active, but he's not a new arrival. He's not a migrant and he's not a Muslim. Because at the time he said he wasn't. But then taking that further now, we've got a state now. We've got this bloke, boy man, in prison, throwing boiling water over people. I read a report the other day. He's not allowed out of his cell until 5 wardens are completely tooled up with all the protective gear to get him out. Just execute the bastard. Much easier. Won't happen though, will it? Why? Because there's no politicians with a backbone. Likewise, solve the small boat crisis. Simple. Anybody who gets through to Dover, you're going straight back. We'll give you a hot meal, put some nice warm clothes on for you, but you're going back. And you're not staying. Close down the hotels. How many more times do I have to say this? Deliveroo and Just Eat. Why haven't they been fined already? They've admitted it's happened. Although I saw a really interesting article today. They wanted to use more things like face identities and the rest of it. And the government have been dragging their feet. So as always, it's not black and white. But that's what a leader does, Starmer. You take advice from all the different people and then you make a decision. And what you don't do is run away from the grieving relatives of 3 little girls who were slaughtered by a madman who your organisation, your government, and of course the Tories, have allowed out again. Prevent. And then what you don't do a few months later is say, let's expand Prevent. It won't work. Right. Phyllis Parks says we're not far right, we're just right. Get this despicable Labour government out. What else are they keeping from us? That's very true. However, as I say, got to be fair, the seed of this is with the Conservatives. Alan Roper, I'm not going to read out what you said, and if you use that word again in my programme, I will ban you forever. He's used the see you next Thursday word. We don't need it, Alan. We're grown-ups here. You could say you don't like Farage and tell me why, but just a playground slag like that, it's just pathetic. So either apologise or get lost. I don't need you. I've got thousands of listeners. Honestly, I don't need you. I don't want foul-mouthed yobs. I've had enough today with foul-mouthed lefty yobs. They've been talking about that girl in the school in rugby. A load of them are saying, her dad put her up to it. Where did you get that from? And her dad's an abuser. And he's there, and all this other nonsense coming out. Rather than dealing with what the story is, which is the school didn't like her wearing the Union flag dress. What is it with people? They can't keep on the agenda. Thank you very much indeed. The only thing that inquiries do is further line the pockets of civil servants and lawyers. Yeah, you're right, Gregory, but there are times when you do need an inquiry because you do need to fire people. The danger is it always gets kicked into the long grass. Conservative and Labour interpretation of government to the people, by the people, for the people. Thank you very much indeed for that one as well, Gruner. So, right, what are we going to do? They're away for 6 weeks. They're going to come back. Nothing's going to change. In fact, everything's going to grind to a halt now. I don't mean this. Just maybe they do need a riot to focus their minds. I don't know. But I don't think that we can take much more of this. Do you know anybody who's really happy at the moment? Everyone's so peed off. Do you know what I mean? I just think everyone is just fed up. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And when I woke up today, well, it was yesterday. I think that story broke late yesterday, didn't it? I couldn't believe it. And of course, I was straight into, that's Starmer's fault. Then when you actually hear the logic, it isn't Starmer. So then you've got 2 major parties, yeah, who had lost confidence in anyway, but now confirmed, are jerks. It's a major, major problem. And of course, there's Farage there. We're all hoping maybe he can. And I did see Zia Youssef, or whatever his name is, on the telly this afternoon on GB News, and he was talking a lot of sense. But will they do it? Because at the moment, even Nigel Farage is backpedaling on deportations. You've got to close the hotels. You've got to say we're going to deport you. Otherwise, there's no deterrent. Pip Tomlinson, I want to say a big thank you to you, Pip. He's just donated €5. That's very good. He's in Spain. Starmer removing the whip from those 4 MPs today will be the start of his downfall. He's already isolated many of them with the Pip debacle. You're right. They revolted against him there, didn't they? You're absolutely right. Starmer removing the whip from those 4 MPs today will be the start of his downfall. He's already isolated many of them with the Pip debacle. Yeah, it's a good point you're making. Fraser Ford, thank you for your donation. Lee Anderson is my favourite politician because he's down to earth and honest. Yeah, but sometimes he shoots his mouth off, doesn't he? Without thinking it all the way through. I think Nigel's cleverer than him. John, I totally agree with you about everything you've said. They're all backstabbers. I wonder what you're going to say then. Well, I think they are. They are. I mean, what a disgrace. How could you actually even think, we'll get a super injunction, that'll stop anyone finding out about it because we don't have any riots? Don't they learn anything? Leaving an information vacuum in Southport led to riots. We can be trusted. We're not the animals. We're not the ones blowing up buildings. We're not the ones driving cars into people. The decent, silent majority. Yes, there's some nutcases, but we're not them. But they treat us as if we're the enemy in our own bloody country. This is why the dress story yesterday was so important. It was trivial on one level, but it's important on another. Just like when people slag me off for drinking an Italian, Spanish beer, or whatever it was, which wasn't Spanish, in the garden, in the market square of the village I'm living in at the moment. It's just nonsense. Focus on what matters. For God's sake. Jackie Ward, it's so depressing. The politicians are all okay on their long holidays, whilst the working man and woman is trying to make ends meet. How on earth Farage will turn it around, I don't know. I don't even know if it's possible. I feel as if there's no hope. I think that you've just summed up where we all are, Jackie. Because, we can go on about Nigel being the great hope and all the rest of it, but he hasn't got, it's been proved already, he hasn't got enough good people around him. Maybe that'll happen. See, the problem is, though, what if it all falls about before he's got the party formed? That's the complication. Has anyone with a brain, how can anyone with a brain be happy that 1.3 million immigrants, I didn't even brought this up, are on universal credit? I'm either off to the US or Dubai, says Gregory Galvin. Yeah, this was the other story yesterday. 1.3 million people, immigrants, mostly from Europe, are on universal credit. Surely you should only get benefits if you've paid in. It's like with the National Health Service. The clue is in the title. National, not world. We shouldn't allow anybody. I've told you this tale loads of times. When Rosie, who's now 30 odd, but when she was a baby, well, before she was born, when she was in Lisa's womb, and we were in the swimming pool in Florida in a place called Fort Myers in a kind of rundown motel, which had a certain charm, a kind of a Hemingway charm about it. But however, she got a twinge in her tummy. So Ernie, the bloke who owned it, was a big, tough Canadian geezer. He raced us to the hospital. We got to the hospital and it was like a cruise liner, the architecture of it, in Fort Myers. Beautiful. Anyway, they got her on the table and then the first thing they examined, our insurance documents. They wanted to know she could pay. And I think that's the right way. We can't just let people keep taking. You can't take unless you've given. Starmer. Sorry, I didn't mean that to sound as rude as it was. But it's true, isn't it? So thank you, Gregory, for bringing that up. This is how I like it when the shows, when people are bringing up other stuff that I haven't necessarily put on my agenda. Gregory then says, do you listen to any left-wing podcasts or left-wing media on a regular basis? Well, watch the BBC now and again. I don't. I just get annoyed. But I do feel in here, it's just an echo chamber that further winds me up. Really, Gregory? Well, if you don't like it, don't listen. But you've just contributed to the echo chamber. It's not an echo chamber. That's what they want to tell you because they don't want independent broadcasting. That's why it's so essential people do donate and do help to keep these things going. Not just me, there's loads of people doing different things now. You need an alternative. How can you trust the BBC when they use a terrorist to narrate one of their documentaries? When they have another guy on at Glastonbury saying kill Jews or kill the IDF, yeah? How can you trust the BBC, who employed Jimmy Savile and then said, oh, we didn't know what he was like? Everybody bloody knew what he was like. Or Hugh Edwards. So you need alternatives. Do you follow what I'm saying? So please, if you can contribute, do so. But don't think that you're in an echo chamber, because you're not. Where are we going next? Hi, John. This is Villegas. Hi, John. What will tomorrow's scandal be? How much more can we take? A national strike needs to be organised. How else can we make them listen? I love Aston Villa. Somebody has to. But I want out of this country. Great show. Yeah, guys, I'm only taking the mickey out your team. You can support whoever you want. And I know what you're talking about. It's like the other guy saying he wants to go to Dubai. I couldn't live in Dubai, though. I wouldn't mind being a few weeks there on holiday. Lisa hates it. She'd never go again. That could be a really nice holiday. Sorry, that was just a joke. Unfortunately, I think the globalist geriatrics have the upper hand. A super tanker takes miles to turn, and that's where we are. This will take generations to sort out, if ever, says Mark the Vicar. Kind of frustratingly depressing, Mark, but I think you're correct. My uncle used to be a super tanker skipper. It crashed one night. He was asleep, but he still lost his job. 7 miles it used to take to stop it. You'd think something that big would have better brakes. Joke. Thank you. Pip Tomlinson, I contributed for 20 years in the UK, but if I moved back from Spain tomorrow, which is where he lives now, I couldn't claim any benefits for 6 months. Yeah, that's where it's wrong, isn't it? That's not when I was on that... after I'd been ill, I was on called Job Seekers, yeah, which is bullshit because there's no jobs to seek for, and you have a job coach. Don't know what they're meant to do. And then they started saying, "Oh, you don't need to come in to sign on, John. Just ring up every 8 weeks or so." And this is where all the disability things are coming from. I could have claimed disability, I'm sure, but anyway, regardless, what was I saying to you about the doll? Oh yeah, so you don't get any more if you've contributed in. It's just nonsense. And then it finished. They said, oh, you do realise in a few weeks you won't be able to claim this. It's a limited benefit. So what to do then? Oh, you'll have to tell us where it was. I said, I'm earning a little bit now from my podcast, but their contributions, their donations, they don't count. Not for the tax man. Well, they do for us. I said, are you sure? Anyway, in the end, I just said, I can't be with this and walked out. And then since then, I've been living off Lisa, effectively, and you, by you doing your donations. It won't be long. Listen to me, Rodney. This time next year. Yeah, all right. Wojtek Krajewski, how to climb the political ladder. Qualities required. Liar, hypocrite, tick. Backstabber, tick. Two-faced, tick. Devoid of any good ideas and completely incompetent. Wojtek, you could be Prime Minister, mate. You're right. That's what it feels like. That is exactly what it feels like. Gregory Galvin, the man who said it was an echo chamber, he can't stop talking now. He's just said, do you think reform will be good for business? Yeah, probably. I don't know whether there'll be a good government. And I held back supporting them for ages. But now, who else would you support? But yeah, at least they've all worked in business. That's the difference. That is the difference. So I think they would be good for business. Oh, Villa Gaz, who I just slagged off for being a Villa fan, he's just bought me a super sticker. He's pressed that little dollar sign on the bottom of the YouTube, and he's donated £4.99. Well, it's a fiver, but they call it £4.99. Too hard to explain. But thank you, Villa Gaz. That's really, really appreciated. Really appreciated. All helps. Lisa Carvel, I've worked for 46 years. When I lost my job, when I lost my job and looking for work, I was told I wasn't entitled to universal credit, just job seekers. That's probably because your partner had too much. Yeah, I couldn't get universal credit. All I could get is job seekers, which was, I think, 90 quid a week. Villagaz says, have a beer on me for the good work, mate. Thank you very much, Villa. That's very kind of you. Yeah, Lisa, that's it. You don't get it. I always remember I had a lesson in that years and years ago when I had my nightclub in Coventry and it went bust, and I signed on again. And there was this guy in front of me in the queue and he was getting every kind of benefit. And then I recognised him. He was one of the toe rags who I wouldn't let in because he was a drug seller. But he was getting all the stuff, even in those days. Whereas me, I'd paid masses of tax because I'd written for, I think at that time, for Emmerdale. I got nothing. I had to sign on for Lisa, if you understand what I mean. I'm not asking for more, but surely you should get the same. The whole benefit system is crap. Absolutely crap in this country. And it doesn't reward people who get off the backsides. It doesn't. Like, there should be a scheme, I've said this for years, where, like what I'm doing now, you should be able to earn that, get a bit of job seekers, because you're seeking a job, aren't you? You're doing something that creates it. And when your income gets to a certain point, it should tail off. But no, it's either one or the other. So then people fiddle. And it's just not right. It's just not right. It's just stupid. And it's just, again, it's because these politicians don't live in our world, because they're self-serving pigs. They just don't know what it feels like. They haven't got a clue. Talking of which, Robert Jenrick has disappeared, hasn't he? Because, of course, he was one of the people in the Conservatives who was in charge when this nonsense happened about keeping a secret from the British people. I just thought people would be angrier about it. I was fuming last night. Liberal Democrat and Reform coalition in the next election, with both Labour and Tories smaller parties. Well, that'd be interesting, because I don't know how Reform would get on with what's his name? He's now a Sir, isn't he? The idiot who goes on roller coasters. Their leader. I can't see that happening. Nigel Gordon, throw your passport away, John, and then pick up all the benefits. It does feel a bit like that, Nigel, on Facebook. Thank you for your comments. Well, that's it. No show tomorrow at 6:30 because it's... Oh, no, tomorrow's Thursday. I will be doing a show tomorrow, but I'll be back in my studio, back home in Coventry, because I'm going back tomorrow morning. And then no show Friday, of course, because I don't do one on Fridays normally. But I might do an extra one just in the daytime. There's so much to talk about at the moment. There is so much. But today, I found it hard to motivate myself to make that final decision to do it. But that's all about being pushed down. I just feel, I don't know whether you agree with me, it just feels as if there's somebody pushing me down. It's just rubbish, isn't it? Telly's rubbish at the moment. Everything's rubbish. Can't afford to go to the pub. Nothing to look forward to. No football. Well, there's the women's football. Well, like I say, there's no football. And what can you do? Yeah? Read a good book. Write a good book. Fraser's just said, we all feel pushed down, bro. Yeah, that's really what I'm trying to get at, Fraser. That's what Starmer's done. Because I was thinking about the Gallagher brothers and Oasis, and I would never have paid to go see them. I wouldn't mind going to see them, to be honest, because I think they've done a good job with the comeback. However, it always reminds me of Blair. At least with Blair, there was a kind of sense of hope. Well, until he decided to be supreme leader of the world. But there was a sense of optimism. Do you remember all that bullshit about Cool Britannia and the rest of it? And there was a pride in our country. It was kind of exciting. I'm talking about the first time he got elected. Now there's nothing. It just... It's like breaking wind and it rolling down the back of your leg when you've got long trousers on. Do you understand what I mean? I know it's a horrible image, but that's just how it feels. Pip Tomlinson says, we've got different problems here in Spain too, but I do look back sadly at the UK. Yeah, but we're not rioting on the streets yet, which of course you are. Well, Spanish are. And of course the Irish are as well. I was reading the details of the alleged crime that kicked off the riots in Ballymena. You can understand why the Irish were not happy. You can, if you read it, I mean, I'm not saying they're guilty because I don't know. Anyway, that's me done. Get me steak on. That'll cheer me up a little bit. Rosie will be back soon. She'll cheer me up after she told me off for not doing things. And I'll be back tomorrow, 6:30. And it will be 6:30 because I'm going to get back to Coventry. So until then, the most important thing is, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, don't forget to tell them you love them. And remember, family's very important. See you soon. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to press the like button. Don't forget to donate on buymeacoffee.com if you can. Cheers. Look after yourself.